Hey everyone. So I want to talk to you a little bit about my story. I grew up in a household that would rather beat you down than build you up. I had to witness a lot of violence, like a lot of physical abuse between my stepfather and my mother. I grew up in an alcoholic household. There was a lot of verbal and emotional abuse. I never felt or believed I was loved growing up. I was constantly told I would never be good enough, that I would never amount to anything, and that nobody would ever want me. And I truly did start believing that. I suffered a lot of sexual trauma growing up from family members and friends of the family. And when I spoke out about it, everybody said I was lying, that I wanted attention. And at the time it was believable because it started shortly after my father died. And I guess it was just easier for everybody to say that than admit it. Going through my teenage years, I was bullied a lot, probably because of who my family was and the household I lived in. I really don't know why it happened. It just happened. In my early adulthood, like early 20s, I started drinking a lot. And I was raped by somebody who was supposed to be a good friend. And everybody turned on me again. And it was my fault, and I asked for it, and I just didn't want to admit that I slept with somebody, and that wasn't the case. But that's what I had to deal with. And I kind of suppressed everything from childhood. I didn't remember. And it started coming out a few years ago when I finally got married and I felt complete. And, I finally belonged somewhere. But because of that, my brain allowed me to remember. So one thing I've learned going through therapy is that your brain will only allow you to remember what you can handle. And apparently, my brain thought I could handle all of this, so slowly my memories started coming back to me. Very bad memories that would come to me. It started in dreams, and it started to make me feel crazy because who in their right mind would dream about things like this? It just didn't happen. So I went to a women's event with a cousin, and it was the best thing that I could have ever done. I learned about the Unique Foundation's Haven Retreat, and I went out there and I got the help that I needed. It kind of taught me about trauma brain, so to speak, and gave me what I needed to feel comfortable with my past. For the most part, just reclaiming hope, that I had hope again, that I would get past this rough time, and that I didn't have to feel ashamed, and I didn't have to feel so vulnerable all the time. And even if I did, it was okay. But there really wasn't anything for me to be ashamed of because I didn't do anything. I did nothing wrong. I came back and I was going through my therapy like I should have been, and had a really bad day of therapy. And it was basically like Groundhog's Day in my head. The bad memories that I remembered played over and over and over again, to the point that I couldn't get up off of my closet floor. I couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't dress myself. I couldn't put myself in bed. And this was all happening at the same time that my marriage was crumbling. Because I lived by myself. My husband, our kids mainly lived with him. It was just better that way. Because I needed to fix myself. And I thought I was doing it the right way by leaving and, just kind of isolating myself, and it was the worst thing I could have done. One night after I was laying on my closet floor, I decided I was going to have a glass of wine, because the only way I knew how to stop anything and how to shut my head off was to drink. I was on 3 medications at the time. I was on a sleep medication and a medication for the depression and anxiety. And I remember looking over on the counter and seeing my bottles of pills sitting there and thinking to myself, all I had to do was take all the pills all at once and go to sleep. And then I didn't have to feel like a burden anymore, and I didn't have to feel like I wasn't good enough, and I didn't have to feel like I was going crazy. I didn't have to go through it anymore. I wasn't strong enough to do it anymore. And then my children popped in my head. And all I could think is, for me, yeah, my story will be over, but theirs is just starting, and do I really want them to feel like they weren't good enough? They weren't good enough for their mother, so she took her life, because that's what I felt like they would feel. I had 2 choices. I could take the pills and not care because I wouldn't be here anymore, or I could get help. So I got on the phone and I called my husband and I asked him to come over, and I told him how I was thinking, and he was like, but do you really need to go somewhere? And I said, yeah, because if I don't, I'm not going tomorrow, because I knew that I wouldn't be here. And it was really hard. It was really, really hard to admit that I didn't want to be here anymore, that I was tired of not feeling like I was good enough, and I was tired of feeling like a burden to everybody in my life. So we went to the emergency room, and it was really hard because my kids were in the room and the doctors were asking me questions on how was I thinking about doing it and how did I feel right now, and the only thing I could do to answer that was I was looking around the room and I said, well, I can tell you like 10 things right now that I could use to take my life. And my kids were sitting there. And that was the lowest that I felt in my life. But I pulled out of it and I got the help that I needed. And I checked myself into a mental health facility. And I got on some medications and I got some sleep. And when I left there 5 or 6 days later, I started intense outpatient therapy that helped me learn my triggers and deal with my triggers and deal with my past. I stayed going to therapy, and I built a positive environment. I have been dealing with this ever since. It's been a little over a year, and I'm still in therapy. I recently was just diagnosed with being bipolar 2. And anybody who knows me knows that I've been fighting this for a long time. But for some reason that day that I went to the doctor to get the official diagnosis, I woke up and I was like, I'm done fighting. Not done fighting, as in don't want to be here anymore, just done fighting my mental health. I haven't wanted to have anything attached to me because of the stigma behind it. But I don't care anymore because it's important that we break through that stigma And like everything else in my life, I have been going with the it ends with me. The sexual abuse in my family, it ends with me. The suicidal thoughts, it ends with me. The just being afraid of having a mental health illness, it's ending with me. I have mental health issues. It's very important to take care of that. And I'm here today to tell you that you can do it. My story isn't over yet, and neither is yours. And it's going to be a battle, but I believe that we can get through this. All you have to do is ask for the help. And don't ever be afraid to ask for help. There is always somebody out there who is willing to help you. Nobody is going to say, no, I don't want to help you. They will help you. You just have to allow yourself to be helped. Just remember that your story isn't over yet, just like mine isn't over yet, and it can end with us, meaning the stigma will end with us.